What's up, everyone? How you doing today? I'd like to talk a little bit about mythology, and as usual, my disclaimer comes at the beginning of my video, which is that this is not meant to be an informative video, although I will provide some information that I've learned. It's more proposing the idea that learning and understanding myths and legends can help us to live better lives as individuals and as a society. But the particular ones that I've always been fascinated with were, say, Egyptian and Sumerian lore, or Native American, or Mayan, Aztec, all these different interesting calendars and belief systems. One that I tended to not get too deep into was Greek mythology. And this is because, I'm not quite sure why, but I guess it's because of the complexity and the depth of it. Now, when I was growing up, I remember I didn't really think a whole lot about mythology, but I did some thinking about religions, and I kind of came to the conclusion that most religions had been created as a way for people to understand the world around them better. But it wasn't until years later, decades later, when I actually got into it, that I realized that these are metaphors, and furthermore, that the people didn't necessarily believe that these entities or gods really existed. And I think that's a misunderstanding, that a lot of folks think that people of the past all believed that these were real beings. Well, in some cases this may be true, but for example with the Greeks, gods were added and, added to the roster, if you will, as they were needed. And upon closer inspection we find, of course, that these stories are archetypes, allegories, and examples of human traits put into a way we can understand it. Some people use literal symbols for it, other people use ideas, but by personifying the idea, which is also in form of anthropomorphization. You're anthropomorphizing this idea in order to understand it. And the person who did the really good research on this, it's hot in here, kind of sweating, is Joseph Campbell, and he did The Power of Myth. This is the interview with Bill Moyers he did on PBS, and you can watch it on YouTube or anywhere. But this is some of the dialogue and some of it that was left out. He's a really good inspiration for this type of work, and I think he was on a track that a lot of people have contributed tons of information. But here's what I found mostly out there. It's either the explanation of the gods and what they resemble, or where those original ideas came from other religions. But very few people that I've seen are really trying to put together the pieces to understand not just what it means, but how can we use it like a tool. You can read bits and pieces of, say, a manual for how to fix your car. You can read bits and pieces on, how to do certain things, but until you read the whole book, you don't quite get the bigger picture. And so what I've done with this, because this is a good book. It's a mythology. It's the Illustrated Encyclopedia of Mythology. And I got it a few years back. I've never really looked at it until now, when it's very detailed and has all these pictures and explanations. So with the combination of that book, as well as my other manuals and books and online research, I've been trying to put together these symbols in a way that can be used and understood. This right here is the Greek and Roman family trees. And it talks about, of course, Zeus and the children of Zeus and the wives. And this is where it gets interesting. Why did certain Greek gods decide to marry other Greek gods, or to just have relationships or sexual encounters with them, whereas some of them actually spent time with, like, mortals, and then there were god mortals. And what this is to me is trying to bring together heaven and earth, if you will, to try to understand some of these spiritual aspects of ourself. And an example of what I'm doing here is, this is my chart that I drew. Now, I'm not going to try to explain the whole thing, but in the sky it's got the sun. The sun or sky is represented by Uranus, whereas Zeus is over here, and his wife Hera is over here. And I drew lines between them showing who's married, who's fathers and mothers, what the reasons behind their relationships are. So, for example, at the top we have Uranus, sky, And down here we have Gaia, or the Mother Earth. And right in the middle they meet with Kronos, or Kronos. And Kronos was the son of Uranus and Gaia. So what this is saying is that time is the is the byproduct of earth and sky, or of spirit and matter. And it gets really interesting with these stories because, for example, Rhea was the daughter of Gaia. She also married Kronos and bore 6 children. Now, one of the interesting things was one of these children that was born from time was Zeus. Kronos had already eaten 5 of the previous births, and so the mother, Rhea decided to hide the 6th baby, which was Zeus, and give him a rock wrapped in a blanket. So he ate the rock, and Zeus was able to be raised, and he didn't know. When Zeus came of age, he decided he was going to seek revenge on his father, Time. He wanted revenge on Time. So he castrated him while he was sleeping. And there's a whole bunch to it, but I think that cutting the dick off of Time, so to speak, kind of is something that needs to be looked into a little bit deeper. But it's almost like some of these are trying to separate the earth from spirit, and there's some really deep stuff in here that I'm going to write a book about this eventually, because I find this fascinating, and I think there's a lot of interesting things to learn. Like with Zeus and Hera as husband and wife, Zeus also gave birth, or was the father of Heracles, which also known as Hercules. And he battled the giants. Well, the interesting thing is that Hera was jealous of Heracles, so she attempted to kill him with serpents by sending 2 serpents to kill him in his bed. Except for he strangled both of those serpents, and he was able to survive. This gets really fun. Demeter is in there as the goddess of grain harvest and growth, and is sister of Zeus. So the earth is sister to Zeus, who is the god of gods, if you will. But he wasn't the first, you see, because he was born, obviously, from Rhea. And Demeter is also the daughter of Kronos and Rhea. So, interesting, I hadn't seen that one. So Zeus and Demeter must be brother and sister. Yeah, sister of Zeus, okay. I think that when you incorporate the underworld aspect of it, and there's a lot to be said about that, you start to understand a little bit of where people were coming from. And in a sense, they were trying to incorporate, spirit, matter, into one, spirit, matter, and God, or the Holy Trinity, or whatever you want to call it, into an understandable format for the people. The people of Greece obviously weren't stupid. They were not just going to believe these gods existed because someone told them. It's the Homer's Iliad, and when he wrote about the Battle of Troy. And I'll be honest, I thought that I thought that the whole Trojan horse thing and the Battle of Troy was a real event for a long time, and come to find out, of course, that it's a historical story. Now there are still people trying to, not a historical story, but a story, not historical proof. There have been people trying to show that Troy was a real place, that this battle, the Trojan War, took place, but there are a lot of people looking to prove these things happened. Just like in the Bible, looking for Noah's Ark, you're never going to find it because it didn't exist, because it's a metaphor, it's an idea. We know that you can't fit all the animals on the earth in a ship. So instead of just trying to defend it as being true, or trying to negate it as being nothing, look at it as the metaphor it is. I think the more that we look into where these things come from, the more we can understand. Now the Eleusinian Mysteries came out of this, and the Eleusinian Mysteries were basically based on the mystery schools, I guess, or them and the mystery schools were this one and the same type of thing, where you had to be at a certain level in order to receive the information. those who observed rituals they weren't supposed to could be put to death. It was very secretive. And these mysteries are what continued on into modern day Freemasonry. These are the ideas that they took these from. They're using the same Greek gods, the same Egyptian gods, metaphors, and symbols. The idea is to realize, and this is where Freemasons, they realize that all these symbols hold power just because they represent something. I think that many cultures understand that their symbols aren't the actual gods, and most would believe that they're not going to actually communicate through an idol. But it's the idea of using that as a connection, a metaphoric connection, I guess. So you know what you're looking for. So you can say, I'm bringing out these today, and for example, this is something very simple right here in a lot of cultures. And something I took from Buddhism. It's these really cool stones, and they're all different, like silver ferrules in them, and they're on this little leather string with 7 beads on it on the end, and 44 of these beads. Okay. It's 44 is the number I chose. And you sit here, and you grab each one, and for me, I think of something I'm grateful for each one. And it's not very hard to think of 44 things I'm grateful for. But by doing it, the reason why, traditionally they would do mantras. So each bead they would say a little part of the mantra, and they'd repeat it over and over. And what this does is this tunes you in to that awareness. It's like, you can't just close your eyes and just be in tune with the universe. You are always in tune, so to speak, but it's kind of like when you're going to go work out. Most people warm up first, or if you're going for a long run or something, you warm up first. It takes time. You get your muscles and your mind and your body prepared. And I think the same thing happens when we're seeking knowledge or trying to gain insight into beliefs or mythologies, is to clear your mind and get yourself warmed up through, learning small details so you can get the bigger picture. And why am I doing it? Well, because I think that by understanding this, I can understand how thousands of years of culture, culminated in the current systems that we have, and why we're unsatisfied with them, and how the Greeks could be so satisfied for so long with what they had, because they weren't taking it too seriously, in my opinion. But anyway, that's just some thoughts I had for the day, and I bid you all farewell, and have a wonderful evening, or